Hey everyone, and thank you for joining this Revizto webinar of the newly designed web-based workspace. So today we're going to take a pretty in-depth look at the newly designed workspace. I know these are difficult times for everyone, so I really want to express our gratitude for taking the time today. My name is David Ray. I'm the Architectural Implementation Service Manager here at Revizto. Also joining me on the call today is Brett Settles, who is our Global Director of Customer Success. And just a quick background on what our customer success team handles. So we work closely with our clients to ensure they have a strong workflow with Revizto use and also implementation. So before we get going here, I want to make sure to mention that we'll take questions at the end of the presentation. However, if you have something that comes to mind and you want to just type that into the meeting chat window, we'll make sure that gets answered. Let's see. So just a brief introduction to the webinar today. So this webinar is going to be focused solely on the web-based workspace. So we released a update to the newly designed workspace here in the States yesterday, and thought it was important to properly introduce it and some of the new features and really just how to move around in here. So first off, I want to talk briefly about the reason for changing the web-based workspace. So this change was needed to provide a single sign-on that will be incorporated into the Revizto platform at a later date. And also another future update will be the issue tracker on the web. So with our updated workspace, this really sets the foundation for both of these new features to take place. And then also just a quick rundown of the topics I want to cover today. So to keep things as concise and easy to follow as possible, I've broken this down into three main focus segments. So we'll talk about license management, project management, and then also get into help and other references. So for license management, we'll take a look at the changes to the workspace structure, how to navigate the new workspace, as well as highlighting some of the differences between the original workspace to the new. And then project management, this is where we'll get into, again, some of the interface changes, how to navigate the new workspace as it's related to project-specific tools, and also again highlighting some of the differences from the original workspace to the newly designed structure of the updated one. We also have an updated help section in the workspace that we'll dive into towards the end. Again, just highlighting changes, new features, and how to move around. So what I'll do is jump into the workspace here. So to start out, I want to take a look at the two ways to get into the web-based workspace. So these have not changed from the original and are both still available. So you have the application way and getting into the workspace here from the Revizto issue tracker. So if I go to Revizto, in the issue tracker, we have the reporting feature here that jumps you into the project specific space. Or I can navigate to the Revizto main website and log in from here as well. So logging in through the website, it will take me to the My Projects page. And then again, just to reiterate, in case anybody's following along, if you navigate through the issue tracker to the workspace, it's going to jump you to the project-specific settings and tools. So yeah, that's how it performed before, so no major changes there. So when I'm here in the workspace, I want to quickly highlight the major interface changes in the workspace. And I'll switch over to the original workspace so we can compare a bit. So in the original, we had, what resembled sort of this top ribbon toolbar to get to all the different tools in the workspace. Excuse me, where now this is changed and, to be honest, more organized into having these two main drop downs to navigate the tools. So under these two drop downs in the updated workspace, there's some key features here. So the first First dropdown is license, and the second is your workspace tools. And they're very much what you would expect from the original workspace to the newer, only organized a little different. So under the license dropdown, this is where you'll find the license you're currently involved and active on. If I scroll down here, you'll notice the license I'm in is highlighted, making it easy to identify where I'm at. And then you'll also notice if I go down even further, it displays some licenses that may have gone inactive or suspended. So when I look at the next dropdown section here and open the dropdown, this is where in the original workspace, a lot of these tools were part of that top ribbon that we're used to seeing, but are now all under this dropdown in the tools section. So if I go back to the original workspace, we can see that up at the top, top bar here, this is where we used to find these items. And then in the newer workspace, they're going to reside here. So under the drop down here, this is comprised of tools where I can find my cross-project dashboards for comparing multiple project metrics. My projects is highlighted since that's where I'm currently at in the workspace. And then the next heading here under this dropdown is license management tools. And also the feature of recent projects if you need to get back to projects that you were just in. So this is important to note, right? Because all these things I need to get to manage a license are now in this location. So to recap briefly, if I go to select a license under this dropdown, then I'll go over to this dropdown to get to my license management tools. So the My Projects page, I do want to mention that the new workspace is a new format as well. So searching for things in My Projects, for example, and other search functionalities in the workspace have been optimized. So for instance, if I need to search for projects with a certain notification and access role, you'll notice that that has been sped up a bit with the new workspace. So I also want to talk about one change to the My Projects page. This is going to help with easily identifying project-specific folders in your working folder. And in the event you need to gather some log files for troubleshooting or other information we may need for supporting projects, we now have the project number under each project. So under each project, is the ID number. And if I get back into the Revizto application, for instance, if I go to Preferences, General, I can find my working folder. And if I hit Change, it's going to take me to that working folder. And then you'll notice some of these folders have that project ID number. So in the new workspace, when I look at these numbers, that's what it's referring to. So license management tools, let's take a look at these. So under license management tools, project info, user directory, project role, now all live here. So what I'll do is take a look at each one of these. So let's say I want to get into the info as it pertains to the entire license. So here we can see the license I'm currently in, the owner of the license, the role of the license, the region I'm under for this license. I can get to my manage users from here and manage projects from here as well. I can change my company logo, which is where I need to go to update the cover page to show up on reports set up in projects. This is also where I can go to check on when the license expires. So you'll see an end date here. So a lot of this information, will not vary from the original workspace to the new, other than slightly different appearance. Something new that I want to mention is that we have added to this portion of the workspace is license-wide project metrics or activity. So you'll notice at the bottom of the page, this is where I can get in here and actually see how many issues are in the project license-wide. And by issues, meaning issue pins generated, clash issues if you're bringing clashes from Navis, as well as stamps that may have been generated and are used in various projects across the license. We can also see how many sheets have been exported from the various authoring softwares we're plugged into. We're also brought in and imported into the 2D workspace. Attachments as well, referring to anything attached to an issue in the issue tracker. And then we can get a feel for how many reports are in the project license-wide. So to summarize, this gives license admins a way to go into the license info without having to dig into each individual project and really get a feel for how much and where Revizto is being used. So we've tried to make this an easy, efficient way to either generate decisions on how many users you might need, how many projects, and also just giving how much and where the application is being used. So great add there by our development team. Let's see, if I get back to my drop down here, I can get into my user directory. This is where I'll go into the license and manage users that I want to add under this license. I also want to add here that, as I mentioned, if I want to get to this page from license info, I can also jump to it from here and launch the page. So again, this is where we can add users to the license, remove users. We can view the different roles under the license. This page is one that's going to have some changes to note. So first, I want to point out that the new workspace does not have an automatic display of the license activity chart, where in the original workspace, I would have that up here as a heading. However, if I need to I can, however, get to that if needed by selecting the activity report here, and then using a few filters such as tags or displaying a time interval for user activity, and then also toggling or untoggling the activity of guest users in the license. I also want to point out that back in the original workspace, if I go to manage users here, so before we had an activated and deactivated toggle to view users, where in the original, or excuse me, the updated workspace, all of this information is now put together. Also have another new feature that clearly shows, when a user was last active in the project. So some of these columns here. Another thing to note, and this one was kind of confusing for some clients, so we've now made this more clear by only having active, suspended, pending, and deactivated as a user status, so that now the inactive status is removed from this workspace. So another great update here is the revised filtering system. So I can filter per status, I can filter per role, or any tags that have been added here. Another thing I want to point out is we have the ability to multi-select users, and then again, by the use of the top toolbar, edit user status in bulk. So as far as, let's see, so as far as adding new users, this is the same, and it's going to be email based. So I simply select add users, enter the email in, set the license role, and add tags if needed, and then hit add. So I'll get back to my license management tool. So if I navigate to project directory, this is going to have a similar feel to the user directory. We can view each project's active date, the created date, and when the project was archived. And much like the user directory, we can multi-select each project if we want to bulk add tags for multiple, for organization purposes, or if we need to bring, maybe a few projects back and restore them to active as opposed to archived up here. We can also use the filtering system to dig into these projects and make edits. And the new workspace also gives us some insight into how many people are involved in the project, as well as the total number of issues within each project. So if I go back to my license tool here, I can also get to project roles. So this is where we can make edits to project specific roles. This will have a few changes to note here. So these things are all the things we can set users to have access to within a Revizto project. So I can go through, tick and untick these settings and then save these as a new role for a project. And some of the changes are that we've added some organization to this page, whereas before we had the tick boxes and descriptions kind of lumped together as one. So if I look at the original workspace and I go to a project here, so for example, I go to private sharing, manage access levels. So again, a lot of this information was just in one. I would have to go through these. Where in the new workspace, this is a little more organized. So we now have what we can and can't do as far as the issue tracker goes, what we can and can't do for model content, and then also from exports from Revizto. And another great add here is the ability to turn on admin rights, whereas before this was kind of lumped in with some of the other settings. We've now organized that a little more clear. So another thing I want to touch on is under tools, you'll notice the cross-project dashboard feature. So this is another at the license level tool that can be utilized for cross-referencing project issue status on multiple projects and tracking that information by use of charts. So nothing major changed here except for the location of where to get to this feature. And also some of these settings used to be down at the bottom right and are now at the top left. So yeah, for the most part, that's how to move around and some of the new things you'll see as far as license management goes. So what I'll do now is get into project-specific settings and some of the tools there and also changes. So let me jump into a project here. So first of all, I want to talk about the interface for project management. So this will look a lot different than the original workspace. And if I get back to the original, just briefly, go back to my project. So again, we had the structure around a top toolbar here to navigate the different tools related to a specific project. Where in the new workspace, we have the sidebar to navigate each one of these features. So we have also separated some things out from project info, where some of these things you would see under project info are now within these tabs. So if I go to project info, the activity chart lived here, where in the new workspace, that's been separated. So project info, this is where I can change things like the title of the project, set an abbreviated title, see who the owner of the project is or who started the project, as well as change the owner if needed. I can view things like which license the project is under, the created day, as well as the updated date. We can also set the project thumbnail here that we'll see in the open screen, and also archive the project as well. Project team, this is where I can invite users to the project with their respective project access roles. This is different, than roles set at the license level, right? And will only pertain to those users invited to this specific project. Also, inviting users to a project and editing roles can be, accomplished in the Revizto application as well. So 2 ways to do that. So the major thing to note here is we can now edit users in bulk if we need to multi-select these users and set different access roles, or we need to remove users from a project just in one sweep. Another thing as an update here is seeing when the users were last active and show a status of pending, meaning they have not opened the project. So if I get into project-specific dashboard, so this will operate the same, just a slightly different appearance. The settings and sending options, again, have moved up here to the top left, as opposed to the bottom right in the original workspace. Reports as well, so the Revizto reporting system will operate and function the same from the old workspace to new. When we look at the report settings, for example, much like dashboards, it's really just going to have a slightly different appearance, but same functionality will remain. Activity, so this is where we can see how active project team members have been in a certain project. Again, originally this was within the project info, but has now been separated out here in the project tools. Version, so this is something we've had, again, I think that was in the project info in the original. So this is used to reference past exports or things that were updated and needed to be synced to the cloud in the project. One thing to note here that's changed is now we have the app version listed so that we can go back to, and maybe if we notice something within a Revizto build that might have changed things, we can reference the app here. And then notifications. So notifications actually occur in 2 places in the workspace. And notifications being the emails that go out with some of the issue tracker updates. So we can see the settings for this project, for example, edit those as needed. If we want to change the frequency from 30 minutes to 24 hours. But we can also see these notifications on the My Projects page as well. So if I go back to My Projects, here we can see under email notifications, if that was set to default or custom. So same stuff here, just found in a different place in the newer workspace. Let's see, so lastly, I want to touch really quick on help and references. So for the most part, that covers it for license management tools, project management tools. So let's look at the help section and how to get to the references for Revizto. So if I open the help dropdown, this is where I can get to the contact page, the user manual, and a lot of these are taking you to the main Revizto web page for references. So we can also look up things like upcoming webinars, tips and tricks references, videos and tutorials. But the one thing I want to make sure to point out, other than where to find these items, is now we can go to download from the workspace. And if I open this, we have access to download Revizto for each of these operating systems. So Mac, iPad, Android. When I look at Windows, though, here, all of the past Revizto 4s can now be accessed and downloaded. And this is pretty helpful if you have a major rollout to a bunch of machines and need to get back to one of these versions to install again on another machine. So this is also important to note because we recommend each user stay on the same build, right, when working on a project together. And another huge add is we can actually go back here and reference all the changes to each build. So if we want to see some of the improvements or newer features released, and so on. So yeah, I think for the most part, guys, that's what I wanted to cover. I'll go ahead and open it up to any questions. And Brett, if you want to go ahead and take over here.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you very much, David, for running us through the webinar. It's really great to get a good look at the new workspace that we're providing. And with like a lot of things that we're doing, the new workspace is a new platform that we've moved our information to. We're optimizing the way that you search through this data, the way that you export. And the thing is that this platform sets forth a lot of the things that we're going to be doing in the future. So I see a few questions here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what we have coming that may answer some of the questions. And then we'll get into a traditional Q&A session. So the first thing I want to talk about is what does this platform provide for us, not only now, which is what David went over, but what is it going to do for us in the future? So this sets up something where it's much more optimized to search through, and it also sets it up in a way that we can start to add some of the more advanced features that we're looking to add. So such as automatic user metadata based on company, the ability to add user groups. So in the future, you're going to be able to say, this user is this person, they work in this department, and they come from this company. And all of that is going to be worked into the way that we report and use that metadata in our application to more automate some of these sorts of data tagging that our users have been doing in the features here. Now, the other thing too, on top of user roles and groups, we are rolling out SSO later. And a lot of this stuff should be happening around the end of May. We don't have exact ETAs for a lot of this advanced functionality, but most of that is happening at the end of May. And then after that, that is where we're going to go into a full-blown issue tracking system on the web that will be built on this infrastructure that you've seen today. So like with a lot of things that we do, we start with something and then we build on it over time. And once again, a lot of people on this webinar have probably heard me say this, but customer feedback is going to play a big role on how we put this together. So, as always, keep your ideas coming.